What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper, and I wanted to talk to you guys about prevailing winds and the importance of knowing the prevailing winds in your area where you live, and also in your bug out location and also your bug in location. You should know the prevailing winds of that area, all right? And I'll talk to you about what that means and why you want to know what the prevailing winds are as a prepper, okay? But before I talk about that, I just wanted to show you the beautiful northern Hudson River here in upstate New York. Those big imposing mountains in the back over there are the Eastern Catskills. And those mountains go up to about 4,000 feet, and they're covered in clouds right now, so you can't really see the tops. And there's some beautiful waterfalls there, and really steep terrain. And so there's actually a nice little duck over there in the water, if you guys can see. The Hudson River used to be polluted in the 80s and 90s. They dredged the river because of all the industrial areas along the river. They polluted the river, and you know, the companies would dump PCBs into the river and things like that, but then they dredged it. So I want to talk about prevailing winds and why it's important to know the prevailing winds in your area. But also I want to mention that I am doing my first giveaway on my channel, okay? And I posted a video about it yesterday, so if you guys want to check out that video, I just uploaded it yesterday. I'm going to give away some NYPrepper t-shirts and coffee mugs. And the giveaway, basically all you have to do to enter the giveaway is watch my video that I uploaded yesterday. It's the most recent upload before this one. And all you have to do is guess how many 2x10s a elephant gun will shoot through. Alright, I'm going to be shooting a 416 Ruger, which is a safari grade rifle with a steel jacketed penetrator bullet into 2x10s that I screwed together. I have 32 2x10s that I cut down to 18 inches, so they're 18 inches long, and I'm screwing them together, and I'm going to shoot right into them. And we're going to see how deep those 416 Ruger penetrators will go through those boards. They're just regular Douglas fir framing grade interior joists that you would put in your house if you're framing a house. Alright, so we'll see how powerful this elephant gun is. And so just guess how many boards you think it'll go through: 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, or if it'll go through all of them. Put it in the comments in the video, and then I'm going to upload the video later this week. I already did the test, so I know how many boards it went through. I'm just not going to tell you guys. I'm going to upload the video and announce the winners later on this week. So check that out, and then I'm going to be doing more giveaways. The next giveaway will be next week. I'm going to be doing a 44 Magnum penetration test, where I'm going to be doing the same exact thing. I'm going to be shooting into some 2x10s, but I'm going to be using a 44 Magnum. I'm going to be testing the Underwood ammo 300 grain hard cast bullets and the bear loads. And then I'm going to be testing the Underwood Extreme penetrators, 220 grain extreme penetrators. And we're going to see how many boards they can go through. Look at this little plane, guys. It's flying in one of the many local small airports here. Look at that. That's a beautiful bug out plane right there. That's a bug out plane. Somebody's bugging out from downstate. Alright, so the next one will be a 44 mag penetration test, and that'll be the next giveaway, which will be next week. And then after that, I'll do a 4570 test, and then a 12 gauge buckshot test, where I'm going to shoot through some plywood, and we'll see how much plywood it can go through. Alright guys, so let's talk about prevailing winds now, and why they're important to know the prevailing winds. Well, so one of my friends here he shared we were on a group text today, and one of my friends shared some information that there was a chemical spill close to where I live, or not that close, but pretty far away, but close enough where it's a regional situation, but it's not immediately affecting me. And there was a chemical spill, and we were talking about how if you're a prepper and you live close to a train track or industrial area, you have to be aware of prevailing winds. Or we were talking about how if there was any kind of explosion at an industrial area, or a train toppled over and derailed and there was some kind of explosion with the train, that it could send chemicals in the air, and it could spread pretty far, and so that's kind of one of the reasons why you want to know the prevailing winds. You want to know if something like that happened, if let's say there was a train that derailed and exploded, and there was chemicals being released into the air. You want to know where the prevailing winds are in your area, your bug out location, your bug in location. This way you'll know more or less if you're going to be affected or not, okay? Because there could be, let's say, an industrial area that's 50 miles away, and you think you're safe because you're 50 miles away, but if there's a strong prevailing wind, it can blow those chemicals towards you and pollute your whole area. All right, same thing if there's a nuclear power plant that melts down or has some kind of radioactive release. You want to know if you're downwind from these areas. You don't want to be downwind from a nuclear plant. You don't want to be downwind from a industrial area, or an industrial train that's very active, that has a lot of volatile chemicals that are being transported on the train on a daily basis. All right, you don't want to be downwind from those areas. And if you are downwind, you obviously want to know that, so you can prepare accordingly. Same thing if you have a bug out location. All right, you don't want to be downwind from, let's say there could be a nuclear plant 200 or 300 miles away from your bug out location, but if you're downwind, the prevailing winds are going to blow that radiation towards you. Same thing if there's a nuclear attack. All right, nuclear fallout. If there was nuclear fallout, you want to know which way the fallout is going to go, from a nuclear target. So for example, to the south of me is a major nuclear target, which is New York City. All right, but luckily, where I am, I'm in upstate New York. If there was a nuclear attack on New York City or downstate, I wouldn't really be affected by it, potentially in the summertime, because the prevailing winds in the summer up here, we get the prevailing winds come from the south or the southeast typically. From May through September, we get prevailing winds are mostly from the southeast. And then from October until April, our prevailing winds come from the northwest or northeast, okay, from Canada. All right, mostly northwest for us in the fall, winter, spring, northwest, and then in the summer we get them from the southeast. We get the warm air from the Gulf, not from the Gulf, from the Atlantic, and then we get the cold air from Canada, from the northwest in the winter. So look, so I don't have to worry about fallout from New York City coming up here, because I'm to the north, and New York City's directly south. So even if it hit in the summertime, I don't really feel that the fallout would come up this way. But if, let's say, there was a nuclear attack somewhere to my north, and let's say there was a nuclear attack to my north somewhere, and it was in January, and I know that the prevailing winds in January are from the northwest, then I have to worry about that. All right, then I have to take appropriate precautions and have appropriate equipment to deal with fallout or any other type of situation, whether it's fallout, whether it's a chemical release, whatever it is. So you want to know your prevailing winds, and also you want to know if what time of the year the prevailing winds are and what direction they're coming from. So prevailing winds constantly change depending on the season, depending on the month. So like I said, up here we have the prevailing winds come from the southeast in the summertime, and then in the cooler months from October through April, the prevailing winds are usually from the northwestern direction. So you want to know the prevailing winds for each season, where your bug out location is, where you live primarily, your primary residence, or your bug in location, which would probably be your primary residence. You want to know the prevailing winds for each season, and you also want to know where you are, how close you are to a chemical facility, train tracks that are actively transporting volatile chemicals. You want to know how close you are to nuclear power plants, you know, nuclear targets. All right, do you live close to a nuclear target? Are you downwind from that? Same thing with your bug out location. You know, when you're selecting bug out locations, if you have the financial resources to be able to buy a bug out location, it's absolutely essential that you factor in your downwind location from nuclear targets, nuclear power plants, chemical facilities, industrial areas, and active industrial train tracks. Okay, you know, so, you know, if you have a train track close to where your bug out location is, let's say you spent, you know, you got a second mortgage on a bug out location, you know, you bought yourself a mini house with 10 or 20 acres in a beautiful area, but you have this train track that goes, you know, this railroad that goes right near your bug out location, and they constantly transport volatile liquids and volatile compounds, chemical compounds, and one day it derails or there's some kind of a leak, and you know, you're downwind from that. All right, so you got to factor all these things in when you're selecting bug out locations. You know, prevailing winds and where you are, you know, where is the nearest industrial area, nuclear plant, nuclear target, and industrial railroad. Okay, and where you are in relation to the to those areas, those high risk areas, and where the prevailing winds are. All right, so if you have, let's say, the prevailing winds in your part of the country are, you know, from the north, and you have a nuclear target to your south, like in my case, I don't really have to worry as much. All right, but if I was located to the south of that nuclear target, you know, and the prevailing winds are from the north, you know, then I would have to worry because I'm downwind. All right, so prevailing winds are an essential part of prepping, and I really should have talked about it more in my channel. I had my channel for 3 years and I just never really discussed it, but it's an essential part of prepping. I've been aware of my prevailing winds for so long, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach a link in the description box below the video, where you can actually go to your state and your nearest big city, and you can find out the prevailing wind information for every month of the year. All right, so, and that's from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Okay, so you can check out that link in the description box down below. You can go there, click on your state, click on the nearest metro area, and it'll give you some prevailing wind info. All right, now what you're going to want to also do is, if you live close to a chemical area, industrial area, you know, refineries, industrial railroads, nuclear plants, nuclear targets, you're going to want to mark those areas down, all right, on a map. So what I would do is I would open up a map of your immediate area, get a red marker, red highlighter, and circle all the areas that are high risk, and then determine if you're downwind from them. Okay, same thing on a regional level. All right, you get yourself like a regional map. So if you live in New York State like I do, get yourself a map of the entire Northeast, mark all the areas that could potentially be a high risk. You know, let's say there's a nuclear plant 200 miles away. Let's say there's a nuclear target 200 miles away. All right, you need to mark those things down, and see if you're downwind from them. Okay, if you are downwind, make sure you have appropriate, precautions in place to protect yourself. All right, if we're talking about nuclear fallout or a nuclear power plant meltdown or a radiological situation, you're going to want to have potassium iodide, and you're going to want to know about halving thicknesses of different materials so you can make an improvised fallout shelter to shelter from the radiation. You're going to want to know about the 7-10 rule, which I've talked about in my channel. I have a whole series dedicated towards nuclear war survival. All right, I have a whole series on that. It was one of the first series I made on my channel 3 years ago. I did a whole series on nuclear survival and, the 7-10 rule, the inverse square law, how radiation breaks down and how to make improvised shelters and halving thicknesses and things like that. You're going to want to be aware of that, okay? If we're dealing with chemicals and other things like that, you're going to want to have PPE gear to protect your skin, gas masks to protect your lungs, okay? Because if the chemical gets in the air, you're going to want to protect from that. Got a speedboat on the other side there. All right, so map out all the high risk areas, determine your prevailing winds, and see if you're downwind from them. Check out the link that I provided in the description box down below. And that's pretty much it for this video. So thank you guys for watching. Take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 P's: prepare, practice, and persevere.